Good afternoon. It's 3:30, so we're going to get started. Welcome to the Capital District Transportation Committee's New Visions Virtual Learning Series. This is a monthly webinar series we began almost 2 years ago, and this is a webinar, so we can't see the participants, but you can see us. You're muted, and we ask that you stay muted. And if you have any questions or comments for myself or our panelists today throughout the webinar, please hold them till the end and use the chat or the Q&A function. So my name is Jennifer Saponis, and I'm the Director of Regional Planning here at CDTC. And today's webinar is going to be focusing on advancing the Capital District Regional Trail Network. So again, our webinar guidelines, many of you have been doing this for a while now, so you know your webinar etiquette. But if you do have a question, again, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function. If during discussion you do have a question and you would prefer to talk, just raise your hand and we can unmute you. So today's webinar has been approved by the Upstate American Planning Association chapter for 1.5 CM credits. So the CM credit number is there on the slide. If you are AICP and you do plan on claiming the credits, you, I believe you need to attend the live webinar. If you are from a planning or zoning board for a municipality and your municipality has approved CDTC's webinars as counting towards your New York State Department of State training, you can also use today's webinar as credits. So today we have two panelists, Jason Kemper, the Director of Planning and Economic Development for Saratoga County, and Chris Morris, the statewide trails planner for the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. We're going to start with just an overview of CDTC's New Visions Plan, Long Range Plan, our Regional Trails Plan, and then we're going to look at different perspectives and really how I see, how the Capital Region has been so successful in implementing the Trails Plan is we have really great partners at these different levels of government, the local perspective in Saratoga County, and then the New York State perspective with Chris Morris from New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. And then we'll close with questions and discussion. So just to start off, the Capital District Transportation Committee, it is a metropolitan planning organization or an MPO. And the key functions of the MPO are to develop these three major products: the Long Range Plan, the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP, and the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP. The Long Range Plan establishes the investment policies and principles that guide decision-making and activities for a planning horizon of no less than 20 years, and it's updated every 5 years. The last update of our long-range plan was in 2020, and the investment policies and principles that are outlined in this plan influence all of the other work that we do. So if you have a project that you want to get constructed, that project needs to meet the goals of the long range plan in order to become a funding priority in the region. And the same thing for the Unified Planning Work Program. If your community has a planning initiative it needs funding support for, it must meet the objectives of our long-range plan, again, to be prioritized for funding there. So really, that long-range plan influences all of our planning activities here at CDTC. And this long-range plan, or New Visions 2050, which is what CDTC refers to our plan as, is the blueprint for the Capital Region's transportation network. It's how we build the transportation system that we feel the region needs and will improve quality of life, connectivity, access to opportunity, efficiency, and many other things. It is, again, a requirement of the MPO. It's in federal transportation legislation that we must develop a long-range transportation plan, and it's developed collaboratively with the public, with our partners in local governments, regional governments and agencies, state agencies, and transportation providers like CDTA. And what does it look like when we implement this plan? Well, we've all seen projects that have come out of the plan, whether it's our region's bus rapid transit system, the Albany County Rail Trail, some very large infrastructure projects that have been completed in the last decade, like the Cows Corners Roundabout, the Rexford Bridge replacement, and then other ongoing projects like the paving of I-87, paving of other local roads, and bridge repairs and improvements, and a number of other large price tag projects. Other things that are in the long-range plan are really our big ticket initiatives, or kind of our big ideas. And one of our big ideas is a regional greenway. The New Visions 2030 plan was the first long-range plan that proposed a regional greenway as a big idea for the region. It set a goal of constructing 10 miles of trail per year to create an almost 300-mile network by 2030. After the release of New Visions 2030 in 2005, CDTC developed a regional trails plan, which it called Tech Valley Trails, and it began to work with its members to plan for and implement over 100 miles of trails throughout the region. Then in 2015, CDTC updated its New Visions plan, and which continued to prioritize investment in trails. And then in 2016, CDTC began the process of updating its regional trails plan by doing trail counts and trail user surveys. And just as we were finishing that, former Governor Cuomo announced the Empire State Trail Project in 2017. And then in 2019, the Capital District Trails Plan was completed. It's our most updated regional trails plan, and this plan is part of the long-range transportation plan. It proposes an additional 200 miles of trails in the capital region. So you may be wondering, 200 miles of trail, that's a lot. Do we need that? Is it really a funding priority? Based on the data and based on policy, CDTC feels that there's both a need and a demand to expand the regional trail network here in the capital region. As a sector, transportation is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions by source, and we have a very extensive network of infrastructure that we are investing in every year to maintain. And in order to reduce the burden of maintaining extensive road and bridge infrastructure, and to reduce that greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, it's really important that we provide options, clean transportation options for folks to use, including walking, bicycling, and other types of mobility. And a regional trail network is kind of like an alternative highway system where those users can feel safe and connected, and could remove some trips from the local road and highway system. Currently, based on our data, we see a pretty small share of trips on trails for commuting or work. It's mostly used for recreation, health, and exercise, which is great, but we really want to expand that share of commute and work trips. And every time we ask the public what our funding priority should be, there is always really good support for bike ped facilities and other transportation options. So why do we keep planning? Why don't we just build the system? Planning has really been a tool for us to implement the system and to be able to compete for funding at different levels, to construct these trails, and to help communities better understand how these communities connect to other modes of transportation, connect to different communities who may be partners in implementing their projects. In 2006, when the first regional trails plan was developed, the existing system was limited to a handful of trails. You can see on the left side, that map is the 2007 trails map. Really, the only significant system in the region was that Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail or Erie Canalway Trail, which is today referred to as the Empire State Trail. And the Tech Valley Trails Plan proposed almost 300 miles of off-road trails. Between the Tech Valley Trails Plan and the Capital District Trails Plan, there were over 15 trails plans and projects completed. When we started the Capital District Trails Plan, the most recent Capital District Trails Plan, between existing and planned trails, we estimated that the network was up to almost 150 miles, which is twice the size of the system we started with, but not quite at the goal we set in New Visions 2030. As of the end of 2022, CDTC estimated the network to be closer to 170 miles in the region, and there have been a half dozen trail plans and projects completed just since the 2019 Trails Plan was finished. And that includes the Empire State Trail, which we count as one project, but we know that included a number of small projects that connected into this larger system. And none of this would be possible without coordination at every level of government, and we're lucky to have strong partners here in the region that are just as committed to trail development as we are at CDTC. So just a quick overview of what's in the Capital District Trails Plan. It was designed to be a toolkit for local governments, trail users, and economic development professionals in the Capital Region. There's a trails plan that lays out a blueprint for how to develop this seamless regional trail network, but there's also a guide on best practices for managing trails and getting trail projects started. There is a marketing strategy, and there's even a recommended logo, and there's branding guidelines so that we create a common identity for this whole trail network. So even if you are in Albany, and let's say you're trying to get to a farmer's market in Waterford, and you're meeting up with a friend who's coming from Troy, you can both say, hey, we're hopping on the Capitol Trail to get there. Each of these trails in our region have local names. We have a statewide system, the Empire State Trail, but how can we create a regional identity for the trail system and really demonstrate that it connects all of us here as a region? So the Trails Plan proposes a network of 18 core trails and 34 supporting trails. The core system is meant to serve as that seamless alternative transportation system. It would be about 214 miles of dedicated off-road trails and approximately 76 miles of on-road bike routes. What we realized when we did the most updated trails plan is that in order to really create the most efficient connected system, we really have to utilize those on-road connections, which elevates the importance of things like complete streets and planning and building facilities for walking and bicycling within the transportation system. And we modeled the trail system in our traffic modeler, and we estimated that when the entire system is built out, it could potentially attract 1.1 million additional users. That's both local and tourism, but then also remove over 17,000 peak hour vehicle trips from the road, which would relieve congestion and create a healthy and green option for commuters here in the region. So again, the data shows the demand for more trails. In 1998, Rails to Trails said the national average trail use per mile was just short of 12,000. I couldn't find an updated figure for that, but our latest count showed nearly 26,000 annual trail users per mile of trail in the region. So things are getting crowded, and we see that as a good problem. It means there is support there, and there is the demand to continue to expand this network. Looking back, since the 2007 Trails Plan, we've constructed about 7 miles of trail per year, which is just short of our 10-mile per year goal set in the Long-Range Plan. If we continue to build trails at that current rate, the full build out of the network would take about 28 years. But if we can get to the goal of 10 miles per year, we could do this in 20 years. So how do we catch up, and how do we continue to improve and expand this network into 2030 and beyond? So now I'm going to pass it to Jason Kemper to talk about Saratoga County's strategy for expanding and developing their trail network. And I'm just going to actually go back to the regional trail map slide to show the region and the trails. And I think I can actually maybe, okay, I can circle Saratoga County, so for reference. Okay. All right, Jason, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thanks, Jen. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. We greatly appreciate it. And with me on the line today, we've got Kimberly Lambert from my team, as well as Jeff Williams. They both assist us with both our county farmland and trails program. So they're listening in as well. I'll start with just an overview, sort of how I think we got here, and then some, we'll go into some details on our countywide trails program, and then I'll leave it to you folks if there's questions afterwards, and we'll answer whatever we can. So first of all, I'll say, both county farmland and open space program and the trails program, I'm going to talk about those together to begin with, because I really think that was the impetus that sort of got us to where we are right now in Saratoga County as far as our trails program. So we traditionally had, prior to, I'll say 10 or so years ago, we had both an open space committee and a trails committee here at the county. Those were both ad hoc committees. So I say ad hoc in that they were, citizen involved, interest groups, and usually a supervisor or two would sit on those committees. So with our typical committee structure, that was an ad hoc committee, would then go on to the full board of supervisors. At that time, it was our economic development committee, and then that would, any of those initiatives would ultimately be voted on by the full board of supervisors. So that process worked well. In 3 years ago now, we started our own supervisors committee of the Trails and Open Space Committee. So that sort of took everything that was those two ad hoc committees and bundled them into one committee at the board of supervisors level, much more formal. And now only supervisors sit on those committees and receive input from those other committees. And I say that because both of these programs, the county farmland open space program, as well as the trails program, were previously funneled through those ad hoc committees. So I think it's evolved over time, which is great. Gets much more support from the board of supervisors. And, it's sort of evolved over time. And I'll just say, in the beginning, both with the farmland open space program and ultimately the trails program, there were a couple key supervisors. Some are still involved today, especially with the trails program. Matt Veach is supervisor, City of Saratoga Springs, has been with us since I came on board of the county in 2006, and really a very, very strong supporter of our trails program. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the county farmland and open space program, and then we'll sort of get into trails immediately after that. That program was started in 2003 during the formation of the Saratoga County Green Infrastructure Plan. Originally in 2003, the Board of Supervisors had set aside $1 million over the first 3 to 5 years to fund our open space program. That was, the earlier thoughts in 2003. There were some hiatuses during previous several years due to budget problems or concerns. I would say the program wasn't fully funded every year since 2003. But to date, through the county farmland and open space program, we've permanently protected 5,734 acres. That's involved 3,191 acres of farmland and 2,453 acres of open space. The county funding to date for this program since 2003 has been just over $6 million. That $6 million has leveraged over $28.9 million in total project cost. So breaking that up into farmland and open space, about $18.8 million in total project cost for farmland, and then $10 million in open space. So just sort of trying to illustrate what, the county's commitment to these programs, what it's been able to do on the big picture as far as farmland and open space. In 2022, we had 9 applications for this program, the County Farmland and Open Space Program. $750,000 was requested. There was only $400,000 in the budget. So, there's still a very strong need for the program, desire, and we're constantly working with the municipalities, Saratoga Plan, and other project partners to fund as many of these projects as we can. Looking forward to 2023, we have another $400,000 in this year's budget to take care of the County Farmland and Open Space Program. I would say since 2003, our low point was probably about $50,000 for the program and has received as high as $750,000 over the year. So this program is part of the annual budget process. A request is made and ultimately voted on by the full Board of Supervisors. So just some program guidelines there. We will fund up to 50% of the total project cost for open space projects with a limit of $100,000. We will fund 100% of a farmland project with no project limit. So the main goal of the program is farmland protection, but obviously we've done a great deal of work on permanently protecting open space as well. So I'll say one quick challenge with that project is oftentimes from the time we see an application and get a contract, we may be 2 to 3 years till a project closing. So that's just one thing I'll put out there. We do have some previous year's projects on the docket that need to be completed. And I say that because the Farmland and Open Space Program was really the impetus that started the whole idea of a county trails grant program. We were hearing from a lot of municipalities, especially some of the rural ones, that the county's focus and attention was traditionally the Zim Smith Trail, which was absolutely the case. Thank you, Jen, and CDTC, obviously, for your strong support over the years on the trail. But we were hearing, that the Zim is obviously #1 priority at the county, but it would be nice for municipalities that are both connecting to the Zim and have trails that may never connect to the Zim or other countywide networks or regional for that matter, to have a program to develop trails in their towns. The Zim obviously takes a lot of county resources. We started out with just, a trial grant, see how it goes. There's really 2 things we did. We started with a grant, but we also, my department's responsible, the Planning and Economic Development Department is responsible for managing. We have about 3,000 acres of county forest land. I would say 3 to 4 of those are very active contained trails. So it was twofold. We did the county grant program and some resources were put into formalizing the highly used county forest land parcels, the ones that we sort of saw a lot of trail users on, and develop resources into trailheads, signage, and getting constant upkeep on those parcels. So the 3 main ones we've got a large parcel out in the town of Providence in the western part of the county. We've got a large parcel next to the mall on Loudon Road, the Wilton Mall. We've got Calabas Perry, which is over in the border of Wilton and Northumberland. And then we've got the Edie Road parcel, which we work jointly with Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park. So it was twofold. We did the grant program and upped our presence on the traditionally passive county forest land parcels. So the program was initiated in 2015. We set aside $50,000 in the budget, hoping to receive a couple applications, basically to get to 50,000 out the door and approved quickly. Right from the onset, the demand far exceeded the amount of financial commitment we had by the county. So we've looked at increasing that over the years. In 2022, we have $100,000 in the budget. 11 applications were received for this program. Only municipalities in Saratoga County can apply, but you can, the municipality can work with a project sponsor, such as Saratoga Plan or other non-for-profit groups or snowmobile clubs, and the town acts as a pass-through to get those funds back to that non-for-profit or other interest group. 11 applications, as I said, were received in 2022. We received about 120,000 in funding requests. And I'll say I'm very thankful to the Board of Supervisors for this, but for the last 2 to 3 years, our funding requests have exceeded the budget amount, and they've made a budget amendment at the meeting to fully fund all applications we receive. So basically, if you apply for the program here, you are a municipality, you meet the parameters of the program. Traditionally, we have fully funded that application. So the limit is $10,000 per municipality. And those municipalities can also team up with adjoining municipalities. We encourage projects that go across municipal borders, and we encourage municipalities to work together on their applications. So, like I said, it was $100,000 in 2022. We fully funded 11 applications. In 2023, we have another $100,000 provided in the budget for those applications again. And like I said, it's $10,000 per municipality. It's a full match. So if or there is no match. So if a municipality, let's say, wants to build a nature trail, we've had several rural towns, they don't have the resources to hire that out. We will purchase the materials, and to get to their total project cost, they're able to use in-kind services. So we use a DOT equipment schedule, we use timesheets from the municipalities. So oftentimes, all it really takes is us providing this little bit of seed money, and we can get a small trail completed pretty quickly at the municipal level. Obviously, you're working with, highway department, so they have their number one focus is roads, obviously, and their infrastructure. So sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge, but the municipalities have been fabulous. We provide the funding, but kudos to all those towns in Saratoga County that have taken that initiative and sort of dedicated town resources to get that done. It's a very simple application form, 2 to 3 pages, not much required to it. We release that usually earlier part of the year. You get 2 or 3 months to make that submission back to us. They're received back here at the planning department. We review them and make sure that they meet the program parameters. Sometimes we'll have a little going back and forth with the municipality, getting additional information. My department then, or the Planning and Economic Development Department, then makes a summary to the Trails and Open Space Committee, and those are presented to that Board of Supervisors, Trails and Open Space Committee. They're openly evaluated. Supervisors go through each proposal. We then go back to the municipality if there's additional information required. Usually there is, but not that much. And then once that's approved by the Trails and Open Space Committee, that then goes on to the full Board of Supervisors. The full Board of Supervisors votes on those applications, and then a resolution is passed. Once a resolution is passed, the County Planning Department works with the County Attorney's Office, and we draft a contract for the municipality to get those award monies out the door. Usually, some of them are fairly quick, and I'll get to this in a little bit. One of the challenges of the program, Sometimes those applications are out there for a little while, which is obviously a challenge in getting the money out the door. Because during the budget process, obviously, we're looking at what's outstanding for projects and what we have completed. So personally, I like to try to get them out the door and obviously the Board of Supervisors as well as quickly as possible and get boots on the ground and get the work done and obviously add to the trail network, not only here in the municipality of Saratoga County, but on a regional basis as well. So just, we'll fund feasibility studies, planning studies, pretty much anything trail related, we will fund. So whether it's engineering, actual construction, which has worked out fabulous for the rural towns. Like I said, we've got a lot of the rural towns have done small nature trails, utilizing highway department resources, either renting equipment or we'll reimburse them for obviously their time and efforts on their equipment as well. I would say generally speaking, for the larger municipalities in the county, we see a lot of feasibility studies and engineering work, whereas the rural towns generally they're bypassing that step, or they've already paid for that step and they just need the money to do the construction and get it done. So we see a pretty evenly split on that. A lot of nature trails, connections to the Zim Smith, Champlain Canalway trails, a lot of stuff, within the municipalities, both shared roadway and new construction. We've also funded boat launches, canoe access sites, fishing access and access to the Hudson, snowmobile trail construction, working with the municipalities and the snowmobile clubs. So really a wide array. I'm looking at our list over the years, and there's a vast array of what we've done or been able to do within municipalities in the county. So to date, early 2023, we've funded just over 62 projects since initiation of the program in 2015. Our county awards, the county money dedicated to this effort since 2015 to present, total $605,000. Keep in mind that's, that started at 50,000 and went up to 100 in the budget. So that was spread out from 2015 to present to $605,000. That county commitment has leveraged a total project cost of $5.5 million at the municipal level. So I do want to say there's some large projects in there in Waterford, Clifton Park, and others that are in the $200,000 to $400,000 range. But I think the big part of this program, which we're super proud of, is a lot of that is total project costs of $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. And we've been able to get that work done, projects done on the ground, especially for a lot of the rural municipalities. So there's a couple in there, like I said, in the $200,000 to $400,000 range, but generally of that $5.5 million, they've been small incremental steps, $10,000, $20,000 at each time. So almost every municipality in Saratoga County has participated, including the villages. We do have a couple of towns, but in those more rural, very rural towns, they don't necessarily have trail networks, and some of them have large state lands in those municipalities. So they'll work jointly on those parcels versus applying to us for, their own trail projects. It's a great program. We strongly support it here at the county. I want to put the caveat out there. There are obviously some challenges. It's often a challenge. You're working with obviously an applicant. The applicant is the municipality. That applicant has a supervisor that sits on the board of supervisors. So sometimes we do have projects that are outstanding, and take us a little while to clean those up. We had a very large backlog going into last year. I want to thank Jeff in my office and now Kim on board as well. We virtually eliminated that backlog, working with the municipalities and their staff to get that backlog off the plate. Right now, we have 16 of the 62 are outstanding. but 11 of those projects are for 2022. So we're just those were just awarded at the end of 22. So a lot of those don't even have contracts yet. We do have a couple projects outstanding from 2019 and 20. We just received authorization for payment of those. So once we clear the docket there, we'll have, 3 or 4 from 2021, and then all of our projects from 2022. So we've done a great job. But kudos also to our Trails and Open Space Committee. They've started establishing deadlines, and I have to provide a regular update to the committee on the status of those projects. So one of the benefits of it being a standing committee at the Board of Supervisors level is now there's a little bit more oversight on that program. And as a department head, I need to be held accountable for that program, which is a good thing because it helps us get those projects out the door. Like I said, it's a great program. We're super excited about it. We do a lot with it. It does take significant staff time, Jeff and now Kim as well. We're managing a lot of projects between the open space projects and the trails projects. We're constantly going back and forth with the municipalities on getting these projects out the door. Reimbursement sometimes is a challenge from the municipalities. We do ask them up front to keep track of the receipts and give us a detailed schedule on what equipment they're using, when they're using it, and who's using it. So we've tried to clean that up a lot in the last year as well. We're using some templates out there, and we've tweaked those a little bit, and they seem to be working much better. There's nothing worse than a municipality submitting an application or a reimbursement request to us. We think we're good, and then we go to the county auditors for payment, and there's a myriad of questions there. So we've sort of tried to fix that on the front side. We're doing a lot more with the municipalities up front and trying to come up with some standardized reimbursement forms to make that a little bit easier. That's sort of where we're at with the Trails program. I do want to say, obviously I work for the Board of Supervisors, but both the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors and my staff, the Board of Supervisors authorize not only the funding, but the resources to keep these programs together and make sure they're viable. They encourage us to work with other partners, and I'm just very lucky, we have the resources here at the county. It's a strong commitment by the Board of Supervisors, and they're actively involved in these projects, sometimes maybe a little too active, but they're a very strong supporter of both of these programs. So definitely makes our job here at the Planning and Economic Development Department much easier when you receive strong support from the board to get these projects to the finish line. And that's all I've got, Jen.
Thanks, Jason. I'll definitely say, at CDTC, we've seen how these funds have gone a long way. Even seeing communities come to us, they're not starting from scratch. They already have some work done because of this fund source and the support from the county. So CDTC is able to really, use funds more efficiently or move projects forward better. So thanks, Jason. Our next presenter is Chris Morris from OPRHP. So Chris, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Will do, thanks. 1 second here. All right, are you able to see that? Can you hear me?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so thanks for having me. And thanks for kicking everything off, Jason. I am, being just one county south, I know how much great work is going on in Saratoga County. So good to hear the details of what goes on behind the scenes. I'm going to provide a little bit of perspective from the statewide level, both from my office and some of the work that we're doing with some partners. I work for New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, as Jen said. I am the State Trails Coordinator and Planner. I work in our Planning Bureau, but really do kind of trail responsibilities for the agency statewide, whether they're internal to state parks or external efforts. We are the kind of designated state trail planner as well. And the plan that I'm going to be talking about here was one of those efforts, and the coordination and work that we do as a result of that, implementing the plan, falls under that as well. So just a quick couple of topics that I'm going to talk about. I don't have a very in-depth slide presentation, but I'll ramble on at these points and go into as much detail as I can. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the statewide Greenway Trails plan that we completed in 2021. Some of the implementation work that we're doing with that, and in coordination with Parks and Trails New York, some of the future efforts that we're looking at that we've kind of batted around, and then talk about our Empire State Trail program that we stood up this past May, and what is involved with that. So in 2021, we released the final statewide Greenway Trails plan. And that document was much like CDTC's Trails Plan, kind of a toolkit, right? It was meant to be, a roadmap that talks about, why Greenway trails, shared use paths, benefit the state, the community, the country, both for transportation and recreation. Talked about, some case studies and best practices, public health benefits and the like. And then, for the state, it primarily identifies goals and action steps to advance Greenway trails across New York. Within that, it has a number of different implementation steps that are kind of breaking down those different goals as to, how not only parks, but partners can work, either specifically with a trail project or kind of coincidingly with a trail project, to look at, maybe disadvantaged communities or public health in their regions, and how, the crossover between those. The plan not only had those goals and implementation steps, but it also had a number of different, I guess you could call them tools that, we put together to not only inform the plan, but make available to folks as kind of a follow-up from that plan. So we leveraged that planning effort to put together a statewide GIS inventory of existing planned and proposed Greenway trails across the state. That data is still up and available. It's available to download. We wanted to make that, kind of use, like I said, that leverage of reaching out to all those partners to collect as much data as we could, and then make it available for partners, whether it's county, local government, or what have you, to use, whether they want to kind of connect to a trail that already exists, or, kind of look at how their trail works within the larger network across the state. There's also a trail user survey that Parks and Trails New York did as a part of that plan, that is available in the appendix, and people can use that, if they want to look at the benefits of trails, or look at what, let's say, trail users are identifying as their priorities for trails. We wanted to provide that information as well. So the plan, like I mentioned, was released in 2021. We are working on some implementation steps, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about next. Because we're, a relatively small shop there, I work, like I said, in the planning bureau, but we do a lot of planning internally for our parks. I'm essentially a shop of my own. So we work closely with Parks and Trails New York to do a lot of this implementation work. Some of the things that we're working with, and we identified first and foremost to kind of get started and keep the momentum from the plan going, were quarterly meetings with stakeholders and partners. Like Jen mentioned, kind of locally, that coordinated government effort, a lot of the conversations that we had with folks developing the plan, some of the feedback we received, and also some of the insight that we gained, continue those conversations, continue to make those connections, learn from people, find out what, folks in Erie County, folks in, Suffolk County, what are they doing? What are the trails that are coming up on their radar? What are the funding, sources that they're looking at? What are the hurdles that they're trying to get past? So we've, really kind of doubled down on that effort, and we're hosting these quarterly meetings with both state agency representatives and local government, nonprofits. So a lot of the different partners, we are still kind of fleshing out what the format is going to be, but we've been really lucky to have some great presentations, and then also just kind of have like an open roundtable of folks to, discuss things. I think it's been really successful for people to learn from others as to different projects and maybe successes that they've had, make connections with, maybe MPO folks or DOT representatives. So those have been really great. If anybody wants to, be invited or be involved with those, they can reach out to me, and my contact information is at the end here. Another piece that we're working with as a portion of that effort with Parks and Trails New York and with the quarterly meetings is to collect data to inform the third bullet, which is an annual report summarizing greenway trails, shared use paths, kind of multimodal transportation, accomplishments across the state, to really create an annual report that, it will in turn roll up to another, let's say, Greenway Trails plan in the future, right? So we can have a short, brief document that can kind of bolster the efforts of everybody statewide and show folks that, this isn't just a big announcement when the Empire State Trail comes out, or when, let's say, some big funder, I'm thinking of like Ralph Wilson Foundation puts a ton of money into Western New York. There's a lot of other projects going on at the local level. And this report is essentially meant to kind of summarize all of that. And, from our perspective, speak to the good that's going on and kind of be able to be shared with partners statewide, but also, from advocates and, people that want to see more from the funding side and things like that. They can use that report to push for, legislative efforts, different budget initiatives and things like that. So we're really looking forward to that coming, and hopefully the next couple of months to be finalized. The other item that we're working with Parks and Trails on is a Greenway Trails development guide. I field a fair number of questions throughout the year from groups that maybe aren't as savvy as Saratoga County, or, some of the other places, maybe in the Hudson Valley, especially, folks like CDTC, that are looking to, develop trails, but they don't necessarily know where to start. So this is really kind of meant to be a 101 document for folks. These exist. I think Rails to Trails Conservancy has one. Parks and Trails New York has produced these in the past in a variety of flavors. But this is kind of the latest version of it. So we're working with them to put that out as well. And that'll be a great resource for folks across the state. So looking a little further ahead, some of the other things that we've talked about that we're really excited about, and, we're kind of still figuring out the mechanics of all of it. But these are conversations that keep happening on those quarterly meeting calls, and, people that are interested in this, I know kind of have an appetite for it. Trail counter data, just in the last few years, there's been a great advancement from, doing the manual counts that everybody used to do at shared use trails across the state, to a lot of areas adopting and purchasing automatic trail counters. I know there are a number of them in the region. I know that there are a number across the Erie Canalway Trail as part of the Empire State Trail. I know that that's the case throughout the Hudson River Valley as well. So, we're kind of starting to talk with all these different partners and saying, okay, well, we all have these out there. Let's figure out a way to collect all of that data and either, just host it online so people can see, and then maybe also roll it up into some sort of, analysis that folks can, make bigger statewide, data analysis, estimates, and again, speaking to kind of, promotion and marketing and tourism, all of those different things. So it isn't as, we're not talking about 6 counters in this county. We're talking about counters statewide, right? How does Saratoga's counties trail counts compare to Erie County and Suffolk County and Dutchess County and what have you? So that's something that we're really excited about. Not really sure how it's going to flesh out yet. I think it's going to be a small working group of folks that, have some experience with this, and we'll try to figure out the framework of it. In part, kind of in part with that, the next kind of logical piece to that some some of our brains have gone to, well, those manual those manual counts for trail users traditionally use the National Bicycle and Pedestrian Documentation Project format and their methodology. And so, can we look at that and then take some of the electronic data and determine, maybe we can come up with a New York count methodology that both could be used by hand and then could be extrapolated into annual counts based on some ground truthing done by both hand and automatic counts on some certain trails and counters. So that's something that I think would be pretty interesting to look at. I think we're going to probably look for some people that kind of want to dive into that and really take that on and determine how the metrics and the the extrapolation points of that can be figured out accurately. And then another piece that is really exciting, again, just to kind of cross-pollinate and get people talking and learning best practices, a statewide trail summit. I know there was a lot of excitement in 2019 when International Trail Symposium had their event in Syracuse. Working with parks and trails, I think we're talking a little bit more, maybe more specifically for Greenway trails. I know when I started with parks, I think within that year, maybe, there was a similar event that was held up at I believe it was held at Gideon Putnam up at Saratoga. And, so hosting something like that, again, whether it's a 1-day or 2-day event, we can have folks give presentations. Jason, I was just thinking about, your trails program might be a perfect example of something that folks might like to hear more about. Folks from Western New York learning about things that are happening in the Hudson Valley, folks from, less populous counties and municipalities learning about, some of the, mechanics of how bigger regions, Capital District, for instance, implements their trails plans and, their TIP and, how their MPO works. So I think this would be a really valuable, event to have, and I think get people excited as well. These are the kind of things that state parks can have a role in, and hopefully we'll be able to provide a little bit of funding for too. So that's, like I said, another thing that we're working on. And lastly, like I mentioned, in May 2022, New York State Parks launched our Empire State Trail program. And we kind of took the reins from the Hudson River Valley Greenways, great success that they did in kind of the initial, running with the torch of the Empire State Trail Directive and funding and seeing it through to the end and the ribbon cuttings. But because it is a statewide trail, it made sense to move it out of, have a very focused geography, from the capital region south. To parks, which has a broader statewide presence. And, what does that mean? Well, there's no funding right now, right? So, we aren't out there building new trail, and nor do we own all of the trail. New York State Canal Corporation, a lot of local municipalities and governments, some nonprofits own many different sections of this trail. So we're really acting as kind of the informal manager. We're looking to just kind of do the day-to-day, right? So there is still a website. We're managing the website and map inbox, answering all of those emails. There are paper map requests, anywhere from 100 to 300 that come in per week that we send out. People are really excited about the trail. That has not tapered off at all since we've taken over. So looking at how we can kind of cross promote the trail, whether, through social media or just putting people in touch if they're interested in Trail Town programs, or, making that connection to local owners and managers for people that, want to get more involved with the trail at their local level. And a little bit of project coordination, kind of the nuts and bolts of, if there is a section of trail that needs rehabilitation, or, we know didn't quite make the cut for new, let's say, surfacing or what have you, improvements. When the original 200 million for the trail was there, we can look out and kind of work with those municipalities and say, what do you need? Are you prioritizing this? Here are the resources that we have, and here are the mechanisms that can fund these projects. So all of those things, you know, it without being a, you know, a huge owner of the trail, I think we own, you know, maybe 20%, you know, Montgomery County in some of these sections. But it's a lot of work. So we're really excited to do that work and kind of, again, just promote and sing the praises of the trail. And, you know, provided money does come in the future, who knows? We'll see what happens with budget cycles and as people get more excited. I know that if you haven't heard about it, you know, the Long Island extension has a lot of people talking. You know, there's some interest in other, you know, geographies of extending the trail as well. So to be determined, but it's exciting for the day to day. And it's, you know, even just checking emails on a weekly basis, you know, the tourism, the market, you know, the tourism, the economic driver of it, you know, it's not, you know, it's not all talk. We get emails from across the country, not only, but, you know, across the globe, frequently of, oh, I'm coming from Germany this summer to ride the trail. How can you get more information? So it's great to be front and center on that. So just a couple of links for some of the things I talked about. The Greenway Trails Plan is available on our website. The Greenway Trails web map and all of the kind of appendice documents, the GIS and things like that are still up and live. I can send those links or put them in the chat if needed. The Empire State Trail webpage is right there and my email address. So if you have any questions, I'm sure we're going to jump to those next and I can answer them for you.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
All right. So we're just gonna wrap this up. I think. Can you, are my slides shared?
Yep.
Yeah, I see the two maps, the 2007 and 22.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. So we'll move ahead. Okay. So just to wrap this up, CDTC has a number of resources and opportunities for assistance available. The CDTC and CDRPC, the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, we have a joint technical assistance program for municipalities for small scale planning assistance, anything from mapping, data collection, small scale kind of feasibility studies, like just identifying routes for a potential trail. You may have like an idea, but unsure how to really route the trail or route a new sidewalk project or other walking, bicycling project. Those are all types of projects that CDTC and CDRPC work together to help communities with. These are really like planning studies that would be under like $15,000, and the match is all in-kind labor. So really just asking the communities to help review documents, collect data, and do a little bit of the planning work, but CDTC and CDRPC staff does most of the work. So if there is a project that your community is thinking about, you can email techassist@cdrpc.org, request more information and talk through your project scope. CDTC is in the process of updating its Unified Planning Work Program. So there are no open funding opportunities for large scale planning projects, but every year CDTC does a solicitation where we make up to $1 million in federal planning funds available to cities, towns, villages, counties, and member organizations for staff assistance and for consultant-led types of activities. And eligible projects range from, again, data collection to corridor studies to developing zoning code language. The 2023-2024 work program will be released for public comment in early February. So you can check the webpage cdtcmpo.org/2023 UPWP for more information. Chris mentioned the trail counting program. CDTC does have automated trail counters, eco counters, and if you have a trail project, if you have a trail in your community that you would need data on, please feel free to email us at cdtc@cdtcmpo.org to request a trail count. There are a number of maps that CDTC creates, including a regional trails map that can be found on our website. We're in the process of creating a more interactive online map for our trail system. We used to publish a printed map every few years of the regional trail system, and then just the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. And the trail system grew and changed so frequently that it was hard for us to keep up with printing them, that we decided to discontinue those printed maps and just shift to an online platform. So again, good problem to have. If you're looking for other data on pavement, traffic counts, other data, the DOT has a number of resources available, and a new resource CDTC just released is a smart mobility toolbox, which can be found on our website. Again, this series is a monthly series, so there will be another webinar February 28th. All webinars are recorded and uploaded to CDTC's YouTube channel. They can be found on the New Visions Virtual Learning Series webpage. So now I will open it up to questions. If anyone has a question, they want to put it in the chat or use the Q&A function, please do that now. I did just want to, kind of follow up on things that Chris and Jason mentioned. So Chris touched on the doing trail counts and really coordinating across the state, and the new counting technologies that are available to planning organizations is really great and helpful and useful. And I know a lot of us have started purchasing them and deploying them, and it has been great to now have this statewide committee to talk to and coordinate with, compile better data, more accurate data, and learn from each other based on our experiences. And this data helps organizations like MPOs to identify maintenance needs, funding priorities, and like the types of use on the trail. So the count data, it can be really useful at the local level too, if you're applying for grants or just developing a maintenance plan or doing some trail management. So please feel free to reach out for data. And each of our organizations, whether it's the county, the state, or here at the MPO, we all have limited resources, and our ability to coordinate with each other really helps stretch and maximize those resources. Some areas of the country have really great trail systems, but they've largely been funded by maybe private companies or foundation funding. Walmart in Arkansas funds a huge amount of trails, Cliff Bar and REI out in Colorado. But here in New York, we've really done a good job at using local, regional, state funds to build an impressive network, absent of those types of partners that are able to do that. So I don't see any questions in the chat or in the Q&A. If there are any questions after the webinar, you can reach CDTC at cdtcmpo.org. Definitely find us on social media. We post regularly with updated information about different planning initiatives and progress in implementing our long-range plan here. Okay, so there doesn't look like any questions. So I just want to thank Jason and Chris for spending time today to talk with us. And yeah, I'm very grateful for your time, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Jen, thank you for the opportunity. Chris, great stuff going on as well at state. So
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Bye.